Hi, good evening, everyone. On behalf of Consecutivus, we welcome you for the first edition of MnemoConnect, one of the 5 live video series from Mnemo channel. Mnemo channel consists of 5 different activities in the form of live videos that alternate every week, Wednesday, always at 7:30 p.m. Brasilia time zone. In the Mnemo channel, we have Mnemo Bio, Mnemo Book, Mnemo Cast, Mnemo Science, and now MnemoConnect. On MnemoConnect, we discuss conscientiologic subjects, especially those more related to seriexology, through debates and interviews with our guests from international cosmoethical conscientiological community. Tonight, we are going to talk about the test of your GROUPKARMIC consciousness, which is the experiment number 560 from the book 700 Conscientiology Experiments. We have this link down below if you want to download free from the ISIC website. To debate with us tonight, we have 2 guests that we'll introduce after the opening. Stay with us. All right, our first guest is Australian. She moved to Iguaçu Falls here in Brazil in 2014. She's an English teacher with a background in urban design. Found out about conscientiology at the end of 2006 and became an instructor in 2009. She's a volunteer of Consecutivus and pre-conscienciometric institution ISIC, Interassistential Services for the Internationalization of Conscientiology. And she has been a Penna practitioner since 2016. Welcome, Jaclyn Cowen. Hi, Jaclyn.
Hi, Joel.
How are you? Good?
Good, good. I'm very well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you too. And we have another guest. He was born in Brazil. He's an aeronautic and mechanical engineer and works as a lead data scientist. Interesting. Found out about conscientiology in 2009. He started volunteering in 2011, professor since 2012, and Penna practitioner since 2013. Currently volunteering in Consecutivus and research paraperceptuology and causality. Please joining us, Douglas Penna. Hi, Douglas. How are you?
Hello, Joel. How's it going? All good over there?
Very good. If you don't know, Douglas lives in Portugal at the moment, right?
Yes. So I just recently moved to Portugal. I'm living in Porto. That's north of Portugal. It's 4-hour difference. It's the same time zone as London.
All right. Before the first question, I'd like to ask you to click on the like icon down below and subscribe to Consecutivus channel if you can. And please feel free to use the chat to leave a question, your impressions, or comments. Okay? So you guys ready? Okay.
Ready.
So before conscientiology, I always heard about karma with a it's a strong, heavy charge. I mean, it's always negative thing. And when I start studying conscientiology, the things change. And the first question for you, for the very beginning, and what is karma for you? What do you think about karma? Can you start, Jaclyn?
Sure. So from the conscientiological understanding of karma, we see it less as a sort of a punishment, but more as a consequence of being under this kind of overarching mechanism of the universe. It's sort of like a cause and effect. So for every action that you make, there will be a consequence, whether it's something that's ethical in favor of other people, or anti-ethical, or what we call anti-cosmo-ethical, or against others. And so there will be this consequence that you will feel the effects, not just in this life, but in your future lives.
All right. And Douglas, how is karma for you?
Oh, it's a very similar concept. I feel that karma has the same meaning. So if you go to the root of the words, karma only means action, right? So if you think about it, people might have this perception that karma is a bad thing because the average of our consciousness level in the whole world is not that high, right? So it's normal that the consequences of the things that we do might hit us hard. But if you pay attention to the things that you think and how you feel and how you work towards other people and work together with other people, then the consequences of your actions might improve over time.
All right. And this is hard to when you read the chapter of 700 experiments, it's a little bit complicated in the beginning, but we study that a lot in Consecutivus. And how you think we can identify in which phase of those 5 phases we are in at the moment?
So, Douglas, do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know, for those people who are watching, if they're aware of these 5 phases, if we should begin to discuss what are these 5 phases. But I guess even before then, taking it a step back, I would like to just mention this idea of the principle of disbelief. I think it's important to mention this. What is this principle? It's in, when we're talking about any of the ideas of conscientiology, we try to apply this principle, which is to not believe in anything, what we are saying here, just to experiment, have your own experiences, which means that anything, this is a theory, this theory of the group karmic phases. It's a theory, and so see if it's logical for you. See, in your research, in your, see it if it's actually something that is occurring in the news, in society, in all these things, in all these places, in your own family. And so, yeah, we see that there are these different group phases. And should we mention very quickly what are those phases, or yes?
Yeah.
I think it's good to introduce them, yes.
Yes. So, so we see that there's 5 different phases, which all consciousnesses, they need to go through, they're obliged to go through in their evolutionary journey, we can call it, and once, for human consciousnesses. And we see that the first phase is known as this interprison phase. And of course, while I'm talking, Douglas, please help me out if you feel like I missed anything. The first phase is the interprison phase, where basically it's consciousnesses who they act in group together against other consciousnesses in their pursuit of power, for, egocentric interests, reasons, and they end up abusing others, they end up, killing others, or, acting against other consciousnesses. And what happens is the results of their actions causes them to become more tightly connected to each other, I guess, in this kind of interprison. They reduce their level of freedom from each other. And, this has consequences in their future lives, right? So, and yes?
In this stage, it's also very common that the people that are in this stage, they don't perceive that they are in this stage. They actually believe that what they're doing might be right, or they're doing this for the right reasons. But because of lacking the cosmic vision of their actions, so how the results of their actions impact other people, they might end up binding them more and more with the people around them.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, as Douglas said, They feel this, you know, that they are completely they are completely correct in the way that they think, and they have all the right to abuse others or, you know, act against others based on their ideology or their, you know, dogmatic ideas. And we see this in, for example, the mafia. We see this in, how can I say, what other groups? They have a list here in the 700 experiments: lynch mobs, death squads, inquisitions, wars, terrorism, genocides, all these groups. So you can look at society even today and you can understand, you know, the bigger picture of these evolutionary phases by just analyzing these different groups in society. Then the next phase is the victimization. So what happens is that over time, so for a long period of time, these consciousnesses act in this same kind of repetitive way. And then at some point they have this, they get to this point of saturation. They just start to have some doubt about whether that their actions are completely correct. And then they move out of this phase and they become a victim of this same kind of mechanism, construction that they created together with their past accomplices, right? So they become a victim of this same group that was their former friends, you know, former allies. And so this is a difficult phase, you know, so there's a lot of suffering, but it is a period where they need to, how could I say, go through this phase to be able to pay off this debt which they, you know, they created previously. I don't know if, Douglas, you want to mention anything else about this phase of victimization?
If you think about examples, you can find it throughout history, right? So if you think about the Inquisition, for example, there are many priests that they try to fight against it, but they were inside the same religion, the same system that they helped create over their life was the same system that was used against them when they were trying to open other people's minds. So this is a classic example of being a victim of your own system.
Exactly. And another classic example is the mafia. What happens when a person tries to leave the mafia? They usually end up being killed by the same group, you know, who they were with before. So yeah, it's interesting to analyze this. And then the next phase is the recomposition. So now they've passed through this phase of victimization. It's a long period, and now they're able to help their previous victims, okay? So they create a lot of victims in the past, and now they have this opportunity to help them, but they feel this remorse, they feel this obligation to help their former victims. And in this period, it's seen as a period where everything goes, you know, backwards, and nothing goes the way they want it to go. And it requires a lot of patience to kind of go through this phase and come out of it.
If you think about it, as a person progresses through the 5 stages, they are opening different parts of their accounts, their karmic accounts. They are going from ego karma to group karma and then to the polykarma at last. And if you think about it, ego karma is when the people that are involved there, they have the most egotistical traits. They are only thinking about themselves, not in the group, or when they think about the group, it's just as an extension of themselves. Like, okay, I'm good, I'm extremely good, and I want to be with peers that are the same as me, you know, because I'm so great. So this is one of the things, one of the easy things to spot on this kind of people. But as you move to the group karmic stage, for real, you start to cling a lot of stuff. So this thing that people perceive that nothing goes right is actually is a residue of the traits that you need to fix. So when you are helping the group, when you're trying to involve and engage with the group and to try to teach or to redo the things that you did wrong in the past, you will have some traits that you develop over centuries. So it takes time for you to change yourself. And while you don't change, it's difficult because you're suffering from the same things that you have built over the years. And now you're trying to optimize things, and it feels like nothing is moving, nothing is changing, or that things are extremely slow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys are sharp, really sharp. Carry on.
Great, great. And then just the final two phases, we have the liberation phase. So basically, yeah, it's how can I say, a release from, or a relief from the suffering that they experience. They've paid off the major debts to their former victims, and they just have, they no longer suffer as much as they did previously. And yeah, they start to become more aware because they come out of their own suffering and their own, you know, need to just pay off those, you know, former debts, and they start to, yeah, become more aware of what's going around them. The sense of humanity increases, and they become a little bit less egocentric. So, and then we have finally the polycarmality phase, and basically this is like the phase where the consciousness stops asking for themselves, and they really acting more in favor of other consciousnesses. So they, you know, they're leaving their egocentrism behind, and they stop suffering. So, you know, suffering, you know, they don't suffer anymore. And basically they start to develop these concepts, these more advanced kind of concepts, universalism, this more advanced assistential tasks, like claritas, discernment, whole maturity, and other more evolved concepts. They start to understand and practice them in their day-to-day lives.
If we can make an analogy, if you think about a baby, for example, and use, or a kid or a teenager, you can easily see some patterns and some behaviors that you experienced yourself a few years ago, and you understand them. So when you see these kind of things, you don't suffer with it. You, oh, it's that phase, oh, it's that part. And then you perceive the person, you connect with them, and then you are able to help them more technically without any kind of emotionality or transfer or anything to the particular person. So, which means that you're more mature.
All right, very good. Before we keep going with the questions, which is very, very good. You guys are explaining very well what's about this chapter talking, and we going deeper. But there are, you know, good friends here saying hi for us: Daiane, Guilherme, Marcelo Fonet, Virginia Ruiz,
nice.
André da Silva, Pedro Fernandes, Marcos, Ana Ruiz, Liliana Alexandre, Weber Takaki, Fabiana Silva. There's many people here. Luciana Lavor, Deborah Klippel, a lot of people. I'm very happy to see you guys all here. And going deeper in the subject, do you guys think in the first phases, the victimization and the interpretation, in our intermissivist reality, can we be in this phase? Being an intermissivist, what do you think?
That's a difficult question, because if you are in the victimization phase or in the interprison phase, you wouldn't be able to help others, right? So in order to be able to execute a plan that you have in your intermissive course, you need to be better. So if the majority of your life it's too connected with victimization or with even the previous stage, you wouldn't be able to perform as an intermissivist, right? But if you think about it, you might have different accounts with different groups of people. So, for example, we can stay here and talk about energies and about multiple lives with the group that we have here in this live. But I cannot go to particular groups and talk to some subjects. So I cannot go to an extremist group, or I can go, like, for example, for KKK and say, hey, look, we need to be more universal, you know, we need to treat all races equally and this kind of things. So they might not listen to me, or they might get a bit violent toward myself, which doesn't mean that I'm on the victimization stage, but it means that I have to think before I go talk to someone else about a particular topic. So if you think about it, it's kind of the average of where a person is. And if in average, you are not in the victimization phase, it's more, you're more prone to have a better intermissivist course applied here on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, for example, to be able to actually do an intermissive course, I think you need to be a certain level. For example, we have the personal evolutionary record, the PER, which based on this personal evolutionary record of each consciousness, you can only enter into the intermissive course if you have this positive balance based on your past lives. And so a person in the in this into-prison phase, group coming into prison phase, they wouldn't have accrued, I think, a positive balance yet. So in the victimization, not necessarily either. I think in the average, it would be maybe at the the recomposition phase on average. But of course, there's always the exceptions. Maybe, you know, in the victimization phase, for some reason, a consciousness was able to take the intermissive course. We don't know, but the whole thing is, even if they did, within their own micro universe, how much space would they have? They're still suffering. They're still in that phase. They're still very much focused on themselves and their issues and problems, and I don't think they'd have space even to be able to, you know, at a good quality level, to be able to, you know, do an more advanced existential program, things like that, which you would do in the intermissive course.
Yeah, I think in the book there is a very didactic way to, you know, to learn all these 5 phases. But I think there is some fragments. When you are in one phase, there's a fragment to another one.
Exactly.
And you can reach sometimes something more advanced sometimes when the average phase you are in. You agree with me?
Yes. This is very common. And I see that this is used by the helpers, extraphysical consciousness that help us to give you a glimpse of what it would be like, what it would look like. For example, if you are intruded on this, if you feel better all the time, so what does it look like? And this gives to the person more fuel, so she can continue, she can persevere, because as Jaclyn was saying, it takes time and takes patience to try to overcome all the things that we need to go to the polykarmatic phase. So it takes a few lives, to be honest, but those small things, those small boosts that we get, they kind of help us to continue on our track.
And as we agree that we can leave some fragments and moments of some different phases, can we be in different phases interacting with different groups in the same lifetime?
I think, personally, my opinion is, I think we're predominantly in one phase or another. I think predominantly, based on the average level of our relationships with people in the different groups, right? But still, I think that we can sometimes be, for example, in some groups, be more like, for example, in the recomposition, and then maybe with some groups, you know, with the victimization. Like, I think it depends on the consciousness. It really depends. But I think these groups are created in a didactic way, you know, and separated into clear, neat categories. But I don't think it's exactly like that when you're talking about the consciousness. And yeah, so I think they can be in different groups.
And these things can kind of give us some clues about our previous lives, right? So imagine that you had like a few past lives that you had huge influence in science and the like, and the societies and the things that you have interacted with. If you go back to them, it's logical that you're going to perceive the effects of the good deeds you did in the past. But if you go to different groups, so for example, imagine that you were a free thinker, you're trying to create science and to spread how to think better over time. You might have made some enemies along the way. So if you go, for example, to the exactly opposite, if you go to fundamentalist groups and etc., you wouldn't be well perceived or have like a red carpet in front of you. So it's extremely possible to have those different karma with different groups. At least this is what I perceive. And if you're talking about multiple lives, this is one of the clues that you use for it.
Yeah, and I think depending, for example, the consciousness may be developed in some areas, and they're able to resolve some things. In other aspects of themselves, they're still working on, like, for example, related to their mega weak trait, or, you know. And so, for example, but even just like a general example, the person, when they're with a certain group of people, they tend to end up gossiping with them and creating, you know, negative repercussions. Just a simple thing like that at work. And so for them, you know, not to go there and enter into that. And that could be, you know, one example.
Yes, you saying something that I was thinking about. If you are in a level and you meet people that have you know, bad things, bad qualities you had before, more vivid, and you meet them again, and you meet these bad things again, and you becoming, you know, using to it again, and or like it, that you start maybe, you know, make the same mistakes, and, you know, doing the same things again, bad things.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes.
right? You have to be aware of that.
Alone I'm fine, but when I'm with this person, then things not go straight. So this is possible, right? And if you think about, if you live in this is something that is easier to perceive when you leave a place, right? So if you live long enough in a particular location and you never leave, you don't change. So this is perceived, for example, in the villages that we have here in Portugal. People live there, they eat there, they plant, they do everything they need on that particular location. And they usually don't even go to other cities, they just stay there for their whole lives. And this affects the way they think. But when you travel, and for example, let's take a vacation, you go there 2 weeks out and you go to a completely different place. You can perceive the influence of your environment in 2 points. When you get to the new place and then you go back, because when you go back, you can perceive, you'll be cleansed already. You'll be interact with so many energy types that when you go back, you perceive the impact for the better or for the worse. And then you can, so this is how the group is affecting me. This is how my thinking changes when I'm in this place. Or, I'm thinking better, I'm thinking worse. It depends on the person, depends on the location. But this is for us to think and try to map those things.
Yeah. As much as we know our weak traits and strong traits, we do self-research. As much as we do that, much more we have no much danger. I mean, yeah. If we are aware of what are our weak traits, and we start the red alarm start, and we know the things we don't have to get in.
That's
or
true.
get in too deeply, so we don't have to make the same mistake again and sometimes go back, and this kind of mess we can redo, and we don't want to do that, do you?
That's true.
Exactly. And it's really, it's very, how can I say, we have, like, everyone has their tendencies. We can say there's the natural biological tendencies, and if we look at past history, people tend to repeat history and make the same mistakes. But then there's those things which are very individual to the consciousness, those, mistakes that, we tend to repeat life after life in the group. And these are the things, like, eventually it gets to the point, well, do you want to just keep doing the same thing over and over, or, You know, is it something you want to do something different? You want to, you know, move forward in your evolution.
And how we should, you know, drive our lives. I mean, where we have to focus on the traits we should, you know, we should dominate traits and attributes to, you know, to carry on and to move forward in these phases. What do you think? How can we choose what you focus on?
I think it's a matter of self-research. You need to find what are those trigger points in you. What are those things which, you know, you observe your behavior over time and you see what are those things which cause you to make the same repetitive mistake over and over. I was mentioning this idea of the mega weak trait, you know, that thing which is the root of many of your issues, right? For example, a person could have like pride, this pride, and so every time, you know, they try to, when they're not recognized for something, you know, they're trying to perform assistance, but they're not recognized for it, and then it ends up their pride comes out. But this takes time to diagnose, right? You go through, like we talk about these 4 steps of consciential therapy, this, you know, to diagnose the problem and then confronting the issue. This there's the self-research, the confrontation, and then the overcoming. I don't think I mentioned all the 4 steps completely. But
we have a problem, Houston. We've got a problem.
No, it's fine. I can hear Jaclyn fine.
All right. Yeah, I didn't see you guys. Maybe only me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's one aspect. I think to be able to diagnose, to identify those aspects within yourself, it's a very individual thing, and start working towards overcoming them. But using also your strong traits, you know, the only way we're going to be able to move out of these, you know, phases and move to more liberating phases is if we really put into action our strong traits in, you know, helping to overcome those weak traits. And it could be traces, you know, from our more distant past when we were in the group karmic into prison phase, but they're still present to some extent in our life, and in some areas of our life they are holding us back still. So it's it's important to find out what they are and start overcoming them.
Douglas, you want to add something?
Yeah. So you have the way to think about the traits as well, and there's also a technique that really helps. And although the name doesn't sound nice, it sounds like very common, because there is no single source of truth, right? We cannot say, oh, do this and you'll be better. Like it changes for each and every one of us. So when you think about it, what you should focus more on, something that really helps is to try to understand what happened to you that made you to behave that way. So if you think about it, Jaclyn was saying that we live in a society, we are molded by our environment, the things that happens throughout our life shapes who we are, right? We have our personality, but we also have the influence of our parents, our brothers, our family, colleagues, work. So we are in constant interaction with a lot of people. So if we try to identify the things that trigger us, that push our buttons, usually there is one event or a collection of events that happened in the past that left a lot of bruises in our history. And if we go back and we apply this forgiveness technique, we can try to resignify that. So we take a look at the situation, we apply the 5 steps of forgiveness, that is to identify the emotion that you were perceiving at the time. Then after identifying, you say how you would like to be treated. And after you like to be treated, you say to the person, what will happen if the person doesn't comply, and then you keep doing this over and over, and you exteriorize your energies. You try to show a lot of to throw a lot of energies to the situation, and it gives a lot of impact. The creator of the idea, when he didn't mention the energy part, but he used a term that was very funny, I would say. He says that the emotions reorganize themselves. And I do understand this, as he couldn't try to define a better way, and he wasn't aware of the energetic process that happens in these situations. So there is this trait thing that can really help. Even if you have like a very small trait, it can help you to overcome the biggest mega flaws that you have. But when you try to forgive the things that happened in your past, really forgive, this is something that boosts your energy levels. It boosts your everything around you.
I think it's really important what you said, Douglas, this aspect of the reconciliation, between people. And I think we need to be aware that in this life, like, such a large concentration of people, and, we're having this opportunity to interact with many people from our past lives. And it's a great opportunity for us to be able to make amends, right, for the past mistakes, because obviously, we're the best version of our evolution today in this life. We did lots of bad things in the past, and, especially when we interact with someone and, there's something about them that's not right, there's kind of dislike even, and we don't know why. We haven't done anything to us. And yet, even could be the conflict that we have with family members as well. And to take advantage of that, just to, whatever I did to you in the past, I don't remember, but I'm going to do what I can to reconcile differences, to, end conflicts, and do what I need to do to make amends.
And this is mostly an internal thing, right? You don't even have to come to the person many times, because imagine sometimes that you had a father or a figure that is not with us anymore. So this is something that you can even do to the person without having to confront, because many times what happened like 20 years ago. It doesn't even make any sense to relieve that now for that person. It's more with yourself and what you remember of the fact.
We have in Consecutivus many techniques to help us to remember things in the past, to help us now. And Weber Takaki he has a question very into this subject we are talking here. I will read here. He says, what are the person traits that can be considered essential or fundamental to help move forward in the group karmic evolutionary progress? That it is.
Nice. So, you want to start, Douglas?
I think it would be personal traits that are connected with interacting with your group in a better way. So if you think about when you have a good humor, you're funny, you're good to engage with people, you connect with them, you don't judge, you try to reconcile people, you try to make the dynamic of the group better, right? So if you have traits, or you've tried to develop traits that are connected with this, it will only help you, right? If you take a look on the progression from ego karma to polykarma, as you keep reaching polykarma, all the traits are connected to dealing with the group, right? To helping them to become better themselves and improving yourself along the way. So if you are in doubt, try to take a look on the traits that you need to use as a group, as part of a group, and try to develop them.
Yeah, they mention here in the chapter, right, in the 700 experiments, they mention a number of traits which will help a person well, they start to discover these traits when they enter this phase of polycarmality. For example, the universalism, so the person expands their sense of universalism. They start to, you know, take an interest, not just in themselves in their own little world, but, you know, outside of their group and, you know, beyond to the cosmos. There's other traits like the claritas, which is the clarification task. I think this is very important. I think the thing is for the person to go outside of their ego and getting offended and you know, wanting things for themselves, you know, even like when they're doing assistance, to stop wanting to get, you know, these secondary gains, to stop wanting to get recognition, to be admired, and do it because, you know, you really do want to help the consciousness. And I think those kinds of, you know, developing these traits, discernment, this is very important as well, holomaturity, cosmoethics. We talk about this desperto condition, this permanently intrusion-free condition, and the polykarma. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know what these concepts are, we can explain them. But yeah, the main thing is going outside of your ego and thinking more about the others. But of course, those traits, as mentioned before, it can be very particular to the consciousness as well. You know, overcoming those weak traits and using the strong traits to overcome them. So for each consciousness, what they need to work on is very particular, singular.
Maybe conscientiometry, it's a good way to find out which trait you should work on.
True.
Yes,
right.
For sure. And so, yeah, they have the book, The Conscientiogram, and you analyze yourself in relation to these major groups or clusters of traits, which is based on the Serenissima. So, and this will definitely help for the consciousness to become more aware of themselves, who they are today, so that they can start working on themselves, on those aspects of themselves they need to go forward.
Okay. And what do you guys think about, can we skip a phase or maybe go through a phase quicker than we go through the others? Is that possible? What do you think about it?
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
It's a bold question.
It's a good question, right? So definitely there are some things that if you do, you're gonna go lower, right? It goes lower. So I remember some examples a while ago that you can have a consciousness that can evolve faster than the other, right? It's not that you're gonna burn karma faster or something like this. There's no such thing. Like, okay, let's go here and let's just exteriorize our energies and things will move faster. It's not like that. It will help. It will help you to stay more sane and more resilient during the process. But I don't believe there's a fast forward button in our lives. So it's something that you have to pass through. So just enjoy the ride, you know, like you don't need to go faster. You just need to go with other people. And if you go fast enough, people won't be able to catch you, right? So it's better to go in a group instead.
Yeah, I mean, how could I say? At the very least, the theory, the idea is that it takes 7.5 centuries to move from the end of the group karmic phase to the beginning of the liberation phase, at least. So, you know, this is if a consciousness is going at the fastest pace that they can go, right? In their evolution, it still takes that amount of time. But so I guess, yeah, there's no easy way out, you know, there's no jumping phase. It's like the concept of nirvana. You can just jump, you know, the development and go straight to the nirvana state, the enlightenment state. It's not like, evolution's not like that. It's a slow process. It takes a lot of patience, But the point is, if you don't start the work, then you're not going to get to the point that you want to get to, right? You'll just, stay and continue, over and repeating this things over and over and over again. So, what would you prefer to do, right? So, and that's the thing, everyone's different. Some people, for example, there's consciousnesses who, they all started together at pretty much the same evolutionary level back in ancient Greece. There's some that are now like in the polykarmic phase, others in the recomposition, and some that are still stuck in the group karmic interprison phase. It's, it depends on the consciousness, what they want to do in terms of their evolution.
And it's also possible that in one life you speed up the process, you take giant leaps forward, and in the next one you just get lost and you don't actually know what you're doing, right? So this is common, this is possible. So the main thing is to don't give up and to maintain the focus, to continue the research, trying to improve yourself, and trying to go for the phases the best you can, not the fastest you can.
There's a theory of the seriexologic broken line, which is sometimes we are down, and the other life we have more facilities, and we are somehow better. This can happen, and this can sometimes move us forward quicker, or sometimes slow us down a little bit. And yes. Virginia Ruiz has a very good question here, and she has the question of $1 million, which is, what can we do to take the first step toward getting closer to the polykarmality phase? How can we open the polykarmatic account?
Yes, good question, Virginia. So, I kind of mentioned before, but I think one of the things we can do is to do Penna. Penna is this advanced energetic task where we're donating our energies. We don't know where it's going, but we're just donating our energies, and then helper and extra-physical consciousnesses who's guiding those energies to consciousnesses, Consecutivus, extra-physical consciousnesses, and other projected consciousnesses in need. So it's understood that this can help the consciousness if they want to get closer to the polykarmality phase, for them to start opening up their polykarmic account, right? To think less about themselves, start focusing on other consciousnesses, on the needs of other consciousnesses, becoming more interested, aware of these other consciousnesses. And like as I said before, not focusing so much on their own personal needs, right? How much of your time do you think about yourself, and how much of your time are you thinking about others? And thinking about others not in, we have this difference between the consolation task and the clarification task, wanting to assist more in terms of really what is best, thinking about what is best for the evolution of that consciousness, and, less about assisting consciousnesses, how can I say, in a more, giving them what they need, but actually thinking more about their evolutionary needs, not, just their immediate physical needs.
In a more technical way, I would say.
Yes.
So there's also the thing, if you think about group karmic and polykarmic, group karma is more related to your group, right? To the people that are more closer to you. So if you try to identify, okay, so what about the other groups? What about the groups that don't agree with me, that don't think like me, that even dislike me? So if you start to have some actions and spend some time to try to understand them, to comprehend them, and get closer to them, and start to have activities that will expand your own group, this might lead you also to the polykarmatic phase, because doing this usually leads you to be more universal, to try to understand humanity as a whole, try to see people regardless of their nation or regardless of their culture. You see nation, culture, religion, those kind of things, they are things that help shape us, but they do not define who we are. So these kind of activities, they also help to move to the polykarmatic phase.
Yeah.
Good. Virginia has another question. She says, in your personal case, Jaclyn and Douglas, you said in the beginning that you moved to another country. Do you think you have any hypothesis of recomposition in the country you are living actually? And just remember that Virginia is she's from Spain and lives in Brazil.
Interesting question. Douglas, do you have any idea?
So I can start. So I moved I was born in Brazil, and then I moved to Foz 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And before I left Brazil, I had a few retrocognitions that kind of guided me the places that I wanted to stay. And one of them was being part of the Scottish nation. And many things that I did was to free Scotland. But in a way, it went against the English. And what I thought, okay, I need to go for London then. So let me go for London and try to clear a little bit of my past there. And when I got there, I thought that I was going to be received in a ill-mannered, but it actually happened the opposite, which twisted me. And I go, okay, so what's happening here? So maybe even with what happened before, maybe some other things happened in England that opened other accounts for myself in that location, because I did not understand why things went so well when I was in England, right? And the same thing when I was moving here in Portugal. So, for example, that same life that I was studying in Scotland, the person died a few miles from where I'm living today. And I also had other retrocognitions from the time that I was an Arab, and I lived here near the place that I am living today. So the second guess that I was, okay, so let's move to Portugal. You also have many other points to move to this location, but those retrocognitions, they have a huge influence for me to decide to move to this place. And I don't know how it is with other people. Each one of us has to analyze things on our own, but I'm not perceiving anything negative in any one of those locations that I'm moving. So it's exactly the opposite, which was a surprise for me based on what I remember doing. But every life after I have saw that, I started thinking that each one of our previous lives we have to analyze with the eyes of the time. So, okay, what I did at the time with the technology, with the status quo, what existed around that age, and based on that, then you try to evaluate the value of your life and the repercussions of your actions. That's what I think of at the moment, but this is only my personal theory based on my own experiences.
Very good. Claudia Pinto Pereira, she says, excellent field installed. Wonderful bath of energy for the team happening during all the time. Thanks, Claudia. And there's many more friends of us here, Michele Pontes, Mario Pires. And there is a good question on this same subject from Mario Manga Santos from Facebook, but I will talk about this in a few moments, because we have an announcement of a course of the integrated action, right? So hang on a second. We have an event from the integration action of the Conscientiology. The course is called Experiences in Volunteering with Professor João Aurélio. Just a moment, I'm gonna put here it is. Okay, João Aurélio is a volunteer in Conscientiology for 3 decades and will provide this course online only. Some of the topics are volunteering and assistance initiatives, stages on volunteering, lifetime and timing for volunteering, specialist volunteer, profile, skills, and tasks, evolutionary purpose and self-realization, voluntariometry. The course will happen on 4th of October, Sunday, from 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Brasilia time zone. And the good news is that the full event will be simultaneously translated in English and in Spanish as well, from the team of Isaac. This event is part of the integrated action of ICCC to help conscientiology to carry on during and after the pandemic crisis. The info of how to buy and attend this course, I will leave down here for a while. Let's go back to the questions. Hello, guys. Come back. Okay.
Hello.
There is a question here from Facebook. Mario Manga says, hello all. How would you react the other thing from your country and conscientiology?
So I guess the country of where you were born, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So nice question. So how would you relate to the Holocene? How would you relate the Holocene from your country and conscientiology? Well, yeah, I come from Australia. So Australia is on the other side of the world, from Brazil, at least. And it's interesting because one of the things which I noticed when I was growing up, there's pros and cons, right, for any culture, any Holocene. But one of the things I noticed is that there was a lack of information or discussion about anything related to phenomena. You just didn't hear anything. I never heard anything when I was growing up about, bioenergies or energies, or even like the basic concepts, reincarnation, astral travel. I didn't hear about anything. And so when I first heard about these things much later, it was kind of a shock to me, even though, I'd already been having some of these experiences, but you just didn't hear about it. So that's part of I think the Australian culture is very, very scientific, kind of materialistic paradigm style, and so it's kind of like a vacuum, I call it, in terms of this phenomena. And so, but that's one aspect, I guess. The one thing in relation to which is positive, which I think which helped me, was this idea of multiculturalism. Australia has a very strong level of multiculturalism, and I think this helped me. When I was young, I was always interacting with people from different cultures, and I had an interest that the culture facilitated or helped in a positive way. This this interest that I had in interacting with people from different cultures, and they spoke very positively about this. So I think this is one thing that helped me to develop this sense of universalism connected with conscientiology.
Douglas?
So I can say for Brazil, and then I could mention the others that I've lived. So in UK, it's extremely similar to what Jaclyn just said. Like anything related to energies, it's considered out of the box, to be polite. But I can understand, because anything that you find in UK, for example, that is related to energies or anything, it's in a mystical way. So it's more related to divination. So I can relate to people that they think, oh, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. It's just material. Look at those people, So I can relate to that. But what I've seen as well is that in a contrast, in Brazil, the Holocene from Brazil is more open to this, because if you think about the culture, the different groups that exist in that place, you have a lot of people talking about energies. For example, oh, people are telling bad news about me because my ear is itching, a lot of small things in the culture that they understand that energies exist. They understand that previous lives and other consciousness, they exist. So, and this permeates everything. So when you talk about energies there, it's easier. And it's like Brazil, Portugal is also easy to talk about energy. So if you talk about this with your peers and etc., they won't look to you like, yeah, who is this guy? What is that? Like they will accept that. They will try to understand, yeah, that actually makes sense. Oh, I had an experience when I was younger and this happens, yada, yada, yada. So, but they never had the vocabulary before. So when you talk about it in an open manner, in a scientific manner, with reasoning, trying to understand, there are other explanations. Could be this, but I discarded because of A, B, and C. So this gives more base. It's more concrete. It's a more profound and deeper thinking about the subject.
Yes, you guys have a different experiences and very rich, because Jaclyn came from abroad and came to the center of Conscientiology in Brazil, and Douglas was in the center of Conscientiology in Brazil and gone out. And so sometimes it's difficult, right? Yeah, you guys know different roles, and in the same matter, what is the environment itself can help or not us in this, moving on in these different phases. I mean, if we move to a different country, it's everything different, but we have micro, environments, the place we live, the place we work, the group of people we used to, we are related on. And what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, there's quite a few things you could discuss, right? When you're talking about the environment. So I think in each life we're reborn and we into a specific culture, and we are conditioned to a certain extent. And over time, it's a matter of finding out what are those aspects of the culture that is kind of going against ourselves, or how can I say, our evolution, and those things which favor that. And I think, we gave examples before, those, positive and not so positive qualities of the culture which we grew up with. And also it depends on the paragenetics of the person, right? For them to kind of stay true to their own personal convictions, their values, their, those innate ideas they brought to this life, and not be so succumbed or overwhelmed by the culture in which they grew up with. One of the things that, we see at the moment, for example, in our society, we have a lot more technological advancements. We have, for example, social media. This is something new that we didn't have in the past. People need to learn how to navigate this and not get, overwhelmed. And I think that's a matter of personal will and decision, not to allow it to kind of overcome our lives. And I think, I think basically, those few things. I don't know if Douglas wants to mention some other things.
Environment is something that changes you, right? I can completely see the difference when I moved from Brazil. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, so people are known from their location to be very direct and very honest about their opinions. And then I moved to another place, the UK, where people are exactly the opposite. And I could perceive over time myself changing, but not in a bad way. And I learned this new way of thinking. I don't need to be rude. I don't need to be confrontational with people. I can speak in a soft manner and pass the same message, but without, as Jaclyn was saying, giving up my values. I wouldn't be being corrupt with myself and abandon what I perceive is right just to adapt to the environment, right? So there is this thing, and when you move, you can perceive those differences between locations. But one extremely good tool that we all have, and that can help us choose the environment that we want to be, the place that we live, the place that we work, the people that are around us, is our own parapsychism, you know? When you train your energies, when you work with them constantly, and you are well tuned, you can identify those places. You know, oh, I'm not going to live in this location here. The energies are a bit chaotic, and then here, oh, okay, I can perceive something different here. I can perceive energies better. Because if you think about it, you're going to stay in your house for a long time, and you can be an elephant. You can try. You know what? You go there, let me change the energies of my whole neighborhood. You can do that, but I would suggest that we start small. So try to go with a place that you perceive the energy is already good, and then you start working your energy, shielding your room, shielding your house, and then, okay, now everything is good here, and now you are a protection of Penna, and you start helping, and you will perceive changes in the neighborhood, right? When you move in and when you move out. But the parapsychism is one of the best tools that we have to change between environments, perceive the interactions, and act accordingly. Not because you are not lucid, you know, but you choose to absorb some things from your environment to become a better person.
Okay, and this is all our responsibility, our evolve. And
yes.
In which phase you think we start become aware of this, aware of our responsibility in evolution? You think before the intermersive course we already have some ideas of what you're talking about here now?
I think so, yeah. I was just thinking before the question that you asked, I think it's related. It's something that I thought of. For example, when people, I was mentioning this idea of these personal convictions, right? These personal innate ideas that you know the right thing to do, and yet, you know, maybe society is telling you another thing. And just recently I watched, it's an older movie, but it's the movie of Schindler's List. And the guy, the main protagonist, Schindler, he was in an environment which was completely antagonistic to, it was an antagonistic environment. It was very, he saw things which, the group of people, the Nazis, and they were doing these atrocious things. And he was there and he saw that, and because of his own personal convictions, he didn't, at certain key points, he acted to help, even in front of, it's a story, right? I'm sure maybe the real story is a little bit different, but in the story, he acted at certain moments to help, help the Jews and things like that. So I think this is one important point of this, even when you see things which around you, you don't think is correct, and, not to go with the flow, not to accept, this group think or this social mass thinking, and to kind of go against the flow, to act more correctly, ethically, cosmetically with your own personal principles.
The interesting thing is that in the beginning, he was a businessman only. He was just thinking about work and profits and stuff. And when he faced the reality, he became more feeling bad about that thing and start helping the people. Douglas?
Yeah, there's another movie that helps to understand this. It's Cloud Atlas. I'm not sure if you all have seen it, but it also tells the stories of a group of people over time. And it's also good to help us think about the multiple stages of where we are right now.
Yeah, there are multiple conflicts inside us during this. I think the most part of these 5 phases. And what phase you think is the most difficult, and why?
I think if you think about it in a more pragmatical way, the worst phase to be in is the first one, right? Because you don't even know that you're that bad. But if you think about it, you don't care. But if you think about it, when you start realizing what you have done is when things start to go awry. So when you go for the victimization phase and you're still suffering a lot of things, that's a lot of suffering, you know. But I do believe that the worst part is the next one, because you are aware of the things that you do, you are trying to do the things that you think it's correct, but you don't have enough energy, you don't have enough stamina, you don't have the traits already. So you wanted to be here, but you're still there, you know. So it's a lot. So this causes a lot of frustration. If you go for the other ones, I know you're already mature. Yeah, you know, just takes a millennia to gather all these people, you know, and then we create a praxis with this group. It's more natural. So the person already understands the cosmic flux. So it's not a problem anymore. But when you are on the third phase, that's where the problem is.
Interesting. I have a slightly different answer. I'm going to go with the victimization phase. I think the victimization phase is where the consciousness suffers the most, and they're completely ignorant and unconscious about, you know, what's happening. I think in the recomposition phase as well, it's that, you know, they're not conscious either. But I think in terms of the level of suffering, I think the victimization phase would be the most difficult for the consciousness. They had all the power, they had everything, you know, and then they've lost it, and they have to go from here in terms of, you know, feeling good a bit, and then they, you know, go down to the bottom level, and I think then they start climbing out, right, of the hole. But yeah, I would think the victimization phase would be the most difficult.
Oh yeah, and in the intraphysical life, it's so many things we can you know, take us out of the track. And what do you think that can you know, sometimes put us out of the track in the society, in the intraphysical lives, in our you know, everyday problems?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jaclyn.
Thanks. I think, for example, the way society is geared, the way that it's constructed, it really does, how can I say, put those certain intraphysical values as being, you know, the best. For example, society, they kind of value this competition between people. They value this status, this success, you know, this recognition for performing certain activities, which if you analyze it from an evolutionary point of view, there's, you know, it doesn't make so much sense. I think, yeah, that's one thing. Now I'm kind of forgetting the rest of the question. Can you, I know I had another point, but can you just mention again?
Oh, yeah. What in the intraphysical life can, you know, take us out of the track of our, you know, existential program?
Yeah. So yeah, those things that I mentioned, and then what else? I think yeah, those things that, for example, that you still have traces within you that connect to those things, right? Is there something within you that still wants that status, that recognition, you know? And so it is a process of looking at yourself, really looking at yourself, and how could I say, not thinking that you're above those things. You know, we all have traces within ourselves. We're still, or to a greater or lesser extent, and we need to seriously look at those things and accept that that we have them, for us to be able to then work on them, because there is this very strong influence from the culture, and we need to be constantly vigilant and develop our parapsychism, like Douglas said, increase our discernment, and make the right choices on a day by day, hour by hour basis, so that the sum of all our choices together will end up moving us down the correct path in our proexis.
There are a lot of things in society, and when I say society, I say everything, right? So that leads us to try out two different things. One is to not have a healthy way of life. So if you think about it, the foods that people advertise, sugar and all those things, they create not so good conditions in your body so you can think better, right? And also related to not thinking better, there is also a condition about the extremism. And as Jaclyn was saying earlier, that we have social media and all these new technologies that are ahead of us. They are good, but they also they kind of create an environment where there's a polarity, right? It's always like one extremist group against the other extremist group. Whenever we have those extremist views, is not good. So let's give an example in terms of self-research. It's always good to try to be the best version of yourself, right? But it's not good to be extremely heavy on you. Oh, I made a mistake, and then you feel guilty, and then how could I have done this? And then you feel down about yourself, and you keep punishing yourself. That's not healthy. On the other hand, it's not healthy how, everybody makes mistakes. Yeah, we just have to accept everything. This is not helpful as well. So it's a balance, right? It's about, as Jaclyn was saying, you need to accept where you are. Accept, okay, I'm making mistakes. I'm at a level that I'll make a lot of mistakes, and I have to get used to it, to be honest. And then, okay, so what's the next step? How can I get better? And you try to be in the middle. Like that thing about being in the middle, about having a balanced view of the world, I think is one of the best things that we can try to do, because society per se, it always tries to give you to one point or to the other. You're either with me or you're against me. You're vegan or you're with meat or anything like that. Living away this polarized view is difficult because the whole society is built up upon that.
When I meet first time Conscientiology, the first thing that I love it, that I could speak of many things that I couldn't speak with my friends, my current friends. And don't you think that friendship in Conscientiology, in the things that you think is important, and the good things to move you on, are one of the most important things in the evolution?
Yes, definitely. Being without friends is one of the worst things that can happen. So if you can, try to cherish your friends, not only inside Conscientiology, but also outside of it. Yeah. But because friendship is what helps us to go over the days, right? It's what makes you connect with. It's the first stage of helping people. So, for example, even in projectiology, if you take a look on how the sciences are divided, before assistantiology, you have to relate to people. You have a science to study how you relate with others. So before you can help someone, you have to connect with them. And having friends is not only a way to have a better health, to have a better mental state, but it's also a way to enable you to help others and to be helped, to learn from them.
Yeah, no, it's great that you brought that up, Joel, because I think, friendship is very important. And if we're with like-minded people that also have those same values, I mean, of course, we want to be universalist in that we're able to interact with everyone, but there's certain friendships where the people do have those same values, and they have the same objectives, and they and they're friends from the past. They're friends you know you've known for a long time, for many lives, and you re-encounter them in this life, and they're on a similar journey, and it's really nice. It's really nice to reconnect, and you know, we're stronger together, right? We help each other, and we can move forward, yeah, in evolution.
Yeah, and Professor, oh, sorry, go.
There's an African saying that says, "Together, alone we go faster, but together we go further."
Yeah, and Professor Waldo always says that we have a mission ahead, because sometimes we leave our, you know, former friends for the previous lives behind, and ahead we have to rescue them, if I can say. Right?
You find
it's an important mission, and sometimes we have to slow down some in some areas of life, because we have to, you know, take them and, you know, bring them along.
That's true. That's it. And you will find them. Don't worry, you will find them. You don't even have to look. You know, you'll bump into them wherever you go, in the workplace, in your family, in your street. You will find them. It's amazing.
Okay. So right, guys, I think we are almost there to finish. Do you have anything else to say?
I think we covered a lot of different questions and areas within this larger topic. It's been very nice.
All right. So I'd like to thank. Oh, sorry. You want to say something, Douglas? Sorry.
No, just like to thank everyone, to thank Consecutivus for the time. I think we were able to cover a lot of important topics, from going from your ego and try to move towards the cosmos. So this was really interesting talk for me.
All right. And I'd like to thank our guests for coming and sharing their knowledge and thoughts. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you for watching and interact with us on YouTube and Facebook. I hope you enjoy. And don't forget to click like if you enjoy, and subscribe to Consecutivus channel. I hope you all had a good time and have a good reflections. Consecutivus is on air every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Brazilian time zone, with one of the 5 different channels inside Mnemo channel. See you next time. I thank you guys again, and bye-bye. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers.